Hey guys, today I want to do a deep dive on B2B marketing. I think so often we get kind of thrust into these roles, B2B marketing roles, or roles that don't necessarily define exactly what that audience is that we're going after. And I think as a result, particularly in B2B marketing, if we've done other marketing roles, B2C, maybe sort of more brand or retail marketing, a lot of that can be lost when we kind of go after that business client, that business ICP. And so I want this video, which will probably be a little bit longer than average, to be that foundational sort of B2B marketing 101 to help you understand the basic tenets of addressing a B2B market and doing B2B marketing. So let's just jump right in. First and foremost, what is B2B marketing and how does it differ from B2C? There are actually a lot of nuance to this. I hear a lot of folks just kind of generally dismiss it as, oh, B2B and B2C is no different. We're still selling to people. And that's absolutely correct. We are selling to people, and we do want to often think about sort of our one-to-one strategy. But B2B is inherently going to be a little bit different, and we're going to want to position our marketing differently. So first, there's just the audience itself, right? When we're doing B2B marketing, we're actually targeting a business, and within that business we're often looking at individual roles versus just kind of folks that would have a need to buy the product, right? So again, there's roles, not necessarily individuals looking for a solution, and I think that in and of itself is really important. B2C often are individuals, they are product aware, right? They actually probably know exactly what they need, or they have a product in mind. And again, marketing can contribute to them being aware of that product for sure. But a lot of times in B2C marketing, even the way we run advertising and campaigns, we're often advertising and positioning campaigns for particular products or product names or solution names, and that consumer's aware. And then, of course, they come in with high intent looking for that particular product. B2C often is much different. It's a business. They're within business. There are usually a variety of different problems that are occurring. And we may somewhat be solution aware. We may know the category that we're going after. Hey, I need a CRM system. I need an enterprise, resource platform. I need HR. So I might have sort of a solution in mind, but generally by the nature of sort of the business buying process, it's going to require me as a role in that business or targeting the roles in that business to provide a broader set of information and potentially be able to compare our solution or product to some others so that they can do their due diligence and they can do a responsible job in seeking out that product or solution. So the audience is different. What the audience needs and is looking for is very different. I kind of alluded to this, but the buying process is different, right? In the consumer space, it might be you and a spouse. It might be just you. It may be you and a couple buddies, wanting to go in on something. Again, so that's usually an individual almost decision or only a couple of influencers or people that you're going to bounce that buying decision off of. But ultimately, sort of the buyer, the consumer, the C in that B2C is ultimately going to make that decision and kind of make it independently. Again, significantly different. Oftentimes there's a committee, there's a process, there's more administrivia around that buying process, and you have to make sure that your marketing addresses all the features of that buying process. So again, buying process is a lot different. Relationship building is quite a bit. And again, in B2B or in B2C, much more transactional. In B2B, a lot of times there are longstanding relationships and connections, and potentially that buyer will buy from you multiple times, or that role will buy from you multiple times. So relationship building and kind of how you address it in your marketing will be quite a bit different. The channels that you use, obviously where your ICP is and where they sort of go to become more aware of solutions and products is going to be dynamic and different. Content, of course, you're going to address this differently. The formatting or the building of that content. Again, when we're supporting a buying process, a lot of times that content is white papers, ebooks, things that are sort of portable and can be conveyed into a committee type setting is super helpful. Decisions, drivers, what actually drives the decision. That can be a variety of different things. And it goes sort of on and on. So the B2B, I guess the main point that I want to kind of hammer home here is it is different. And when you're preparing your marketing strategy, you want to be aware of that difference. And you want to kind of build out your channels and your audiences in a different way. You want to address that ICP in a different way. You want to be targeting more roles versus like individuals per se. And that will help you too, because as you're doing your targeting, you're often, I kind of hear this analogy a lot. When we're doing our B2B marketing, it's much like golf. We're aiming or we're targeting for the pin, the perfect shot, but we'll be happy to hit the green. And so as a result of kind of that type of analogy, that kind of shows where we want to kind of position our B2B marketing and how we're going to do that. So it's a lot less individualistic, like B2C, where we're just kind of bringing in an inbound inquiry and those sorts of things. They're individuals, they have names. Again, a lot of our B2B marketing is going to be more focused on the role itself. And then, of course, there are some challenges within that, right, that make it a little bit different. Typically, the sales cycle is longer. It is a complex decision-making process. So our marketing, I talk about this over and over again. I think it's really important to kind of hammer on a bit, is we want to provide all kinds of material to fill the different types of decision-making that's going on, right? So we want to have a white paper that they can bring into committee. We want to have a sort of easy to consume 1 or 2 piece, sales collateral or a presentation, a deck that again can be brought into committee or could be forwarded around via email internally, because that decision making process is pretty complex, and your buyer that you're probably connected with initially, or that lead inquiry, is most likely going to be your best champion. And so you want to equip that champion much like you would equip your sales force, right? So in a lot of ways it's sales enablement, but it's championship or champion enablement. And then, of course, you're building trust and relationship, because that cycle is longer. And as a result of that, you kind of have to build a more robust relationship. The other thing, and again, a lot of these things overlap, so we're touching on them as we kind of go through this checklist of sort of defining B2B marketing in particular. Another significant part of this is understanding the target audience, right? So building out buyer personas, building out use cases, understanding the roles. A great way to do this, of course, market research is a big piece of this, but a great way to do market research is one, sort of go out into those channels that you might be using, things like LinkedIn, and just sort of observe your ICP and the things that they're interested. You might have targeted a few roles. You might have even collected a few individuals. Again, LinkedIn outreach and some of the things that we explore in some of our LinkedIn marketing videos is great for you to get a good survey of that market and be able to watch those roles interact and see what they're interested in and what's most important to them. The other good way to do market research is to go to ChatGPT. So this is super effective. ChatGPT has just a massive knowledge base. You can give ChatGPT a role. And I do this all the time. It's like, hey, you're a VP of marketing in this particular category or vertical. What are some of your problems that you're faced with? What are some of the challenges? One that I love to do and gives me kind of really interesting results is what are some of your personal or emotional or anxieties that you encounter as a VP of marketing? And so this will give me a little bit of, even though B2B is often a more logical sort of purchase process, it brings in the emotion, which always accounts for a significant portion of that buying process. So using ChatGPT to kind of use it as a foil. Again, one of the things I see a lot of people doing wrong is they kind of ask ChatGPT, I always say, to do your homework for you. So ask direct questions about like, oh, what does a VP of marketing, need to hear from me or whatever. Instead, I like to actually give ChatGPT that role, and then I like to essentially interview it in that role. So much like I would do if I had a survey and a bunch of VPs of marketing, this gives me essentially ChatGPT sits in that seat, and then I get to run an interview against that role. So ChatGPT can kind of give me some really clever ways to do market research. Then, of course, in developing the strategy, I think oftentimes in B2B marketing, we will just jump straight in with tactics. And I think this is a little bit natural because often when we're kind of set down in that seat, we're hired in as a director of marketing or a VP of marketing. We kind of are thrust into a role that's probably overdue. They probably needed that position for a long time. So there's a lot of pressure to start doing a lot of things. And as a result, what do? We kind of take our bag of tricks and we go and we start doing tactics. I love to step back. This is good for you anyway, to kind of build some rapport and some professionalism and some expertise in front of fellow executives or other executives that you're collaborating with, or you might have to get approvals from, is to sort of push back on them a little bit, to start with objectives and start at the very highest level. What are those objectives? What are those key results? Maybe even push on them a little bit. Have you already done this? A lot of organizations you'll come to, they've never really considered their overall business objectives and key results, and those OKRs is a great sort of tool to use in that context. If they haven't built those, maybe spend a little time asking them some questions and collaborating on building those, because the best B2B marketing strategies are built from OKRs, or high-level business objectives and very specific quantifiable key results that you're trying to achieve. And then from there, it does a couple of really important things for you. One, your strategies and your tactics can essentially ladder up to those OKRs and tie directly into them. It also gives you a great sort of footing for, as you're kind of working through those performance reviews or feedback sessions or check-ins, or you're running the campaigns and you're trying to figure out whether or not they're working. That question can be, are they moving towards the OKR? Are they actually moving the needle on those OKRs, or getting us closer or contributing to the OKR? So I'm a big believer in sort of building from a set of goals and objectives first, and then creating the value proposition within those campaigns to, again, support and move the needle towards those OKRs. Then often what comes into play, and I think is probably the best place to start, is to start building out that content marketing strategy. So a lot of times in B2B marketing, the first thing that we kind of jump into is cold outreach, because unlike B2C, in the B2B world, it's actually pretty easy to go find a list of companies that seem to be in your ICP, identify them, that, there's a set of attributes, and I can put those attributes in a database, and I can pull out a lot of companies that should be my ICP. And then from there, to drill in to actually find the roles, and then drill even further and find the actual individuals. And so I think because that's so simple, a lot of us will kind of do that first, and then just ramp up the email marketing. We'll build out the domains, we'll get our tools instantly, we'll pull those lists out of Apollo, and then we'll just have thousands of people, and we'll start blasting emails with our value proposition and our messaging into their inboxes. The problem with that is, oftentimes, if that's our first strategy and maybe our only strategy, every one of those interactions are completely cold. And even if they went to kind of look deeper, like, oh, this seems interesting, let me go ahead and take a look at these folks, there won't be any content. There won't be any rabbit trails to go down, rabbit holes to fall into, content to binge on. I like to actually do, and it doesn't have to be thousands of articles and those sorts of things. But I want to start building my content marketing rhythm. I want to start publishing some white papers, some lead magnets, some ebooks. Again, things that are portable. They can take away and they can put into committee as they're trying to build support for this. I want to get those things started to be built on the website. I do want to consider SEO and where that demand is. Is there already people searching for the problem that I solve and my particular product? So So I do want to do some research and think about that content in an intentional way. And then also I want to think about, again, we'll talk about social media here in a second a little bit, but if there are platforms where my ICP hangs out, I want to be publishing content in there. So two things will start to happen, right? As I publish some of this content, or maybe I've used a LinkedIn marketing strategy, which again, we can kind of link videos here to that as well. But when that email comes in, one of two things will 100% happen, right? So when that email comes in, they will have maybe already ideally heard of you. And so now that makes that a warm conversation, right? They've heard of you, they're aware of you, brings up your credibility, brings up the trust level, or the email itself is compelling and interesting, but they haven't necessarily heard of you. And so they're going to do a quick search. And if you've done the content work, they'll fall into that rabbit hole, right? They'll fall into your content. They'll see the first thing. Hopefully there'll be an opportunity for them to dig a little bit deeper and binge on you. And ultimately that's going to be a little bit of pre-sales, right? Because they're going to read about your philosophy and your approach to solving the problem. And then ideally, philosophically, if they do make an inquiry, then they're already halfway there, right? They're already somewhat in alignment because they've consumed your content. And not only do they realize they may need your solution, but they kind of probably, if they've contacted you in particular, or they've responded to your email, they probably kind of bought into your approach to solving the problem. So content marketing needs to be an essential element of your B2B marketing strategy. Then, of course, there is just lead generation and nurturing, right? So lead generation is a component of what we talked about with content marketing and email marketing potentially. But that nurturing cycle becomes really important because, like we said at the beginning, these are more complex sort of decisions, and these are going to be longer sales cycles. And so even if you get inbound inquiries or responses to your emails and those sorts of things, those leads will probably need multiple impressions and you'll need multiple interactions. And so that nurturing process, so having emails or newsletters or within your CRM, even better, as people enter in statuses, you kick into sequences that'll give them multiple touches. That can be really powerful because most B2B leads are going to need at least 7 touches or more, and probably are going to expand across anywhere from 60 to 90 days. Again, this has a lot of dependency on your product, but even sort of in the best of cases, you're going to need that window, right? You're going to need that nurturing. And again, most of this can be done with email and some triggers to do some outbound calling and that sort of thing. But the most important thing is you want as much as possible that rhythm, that motion to be automated so that I, as a sales team or a salesperson, am being supported by marketing because I have this automation running, and then the salesperson is simply responding to the responses, right? So that's kind of the ideal part of bringing your B2B marketing deeper into that funnel and into sales automation to some degree. As far as digital marketing channels and the channels that we like to use, I think kind of the best ones, just kind of the three-legged stool, so to speak, is search engine and content, right? Again, 90% of traffic, and we're talking about digital, right? So when we talk about digital, like where are these visitors come from? So there are stats that support 90% of the traffic to websites just globally comes from Google. So we need to be addressing Google, and we can address this with search engine optimization and content as well as PPC, right? So pay-per-click, Google ads specifically. YouTube can play into this as well, but having that search engine marketing as a core component, that's one part of the three-legged stool. And again, that can be done with content and earned with SEO, or it can be paid for in a pay-per-click setting with Google Ads. The second piece of that is your social media platforms. And again, I like to start with the ad platforms first because you can kind of control that. You can go straight after your ICPs. But that is another leg of that stool. For B2B, a lot of times that's LinkedIn, but depending on the nuance of your particular market, there may be some other channels that are social-like that are interesting. Could be Facebook, could be Reddit. It's kind of interesting things that can be done within Reddit, but probably you're focused on LinkedIn. And again, there's a whole whole sort of cadence around LinkedIn marketing specifically. So that's the second leg of the stool. And then the third is email marketing. And so email marketing can take a couple different forms inside of our B2B marketing strategy. So the one that most of you are probably familiar with, which is that cold outreach. Again, we're getting a list and we're pushing out to roles and specific people that we've identified in that list, and we're moving those messages out. But the other thing is a newsletter type of concept. And again, acquiring these folks that have some interest and want to learn about, and move them into a newsletter so that we can kind of nurture them and give them another sort of component of the value proposition, right? We're educating them, we're sharing our expertise, and this can be acquired through lead magnets. Is a great way to do this, right? We're pulling them in with a piece of valuable content, depending on what stage you are with your particular company. That content, that lead magnet, can actually be an MVP for a product that you're starting to build out. So you can, again, build a white paper or build an ebook or build an information resource that starts to sort of simulate and do some of the early testing as an MVP. The other thing that's key is just making sure that sales and marketing is in alignment, right? So when you're doing B2B marketing, unlike B2C marketing, which is transactional, maybe you can do the whole transaction online. B2B, you as a B2B marketing expert are supporting the sales team. So you need to be in alignment. You need to be in collaboration with them to understand, one, what they kind of expect in a lead and what's going to work the best for them. And will enable them to be successful in conversion. But at the same time is to help sales understand what you can and in a lot of cases cannot do with marketing so that they have good expectations as to what they should expect from that lead, and where, kind of the strengths and the shortfalls might be in that. And then all this sort of ties into measurements and analytics. We started all the way at OKRs and we want to end with analytics. So these things all foot together. We want to be measuring. We want to have clear understanding of what those key results are. And then, of course, we want to have the mechanism so we can track those 24/7 in real time when we're doing our check-ins. We can go to the performance dashboard and we can foot those things all the way back up to the OKRs. And then, of course, there's always going to be kind of trends and innovations in B2B marketing, and we'll talk about those in other videos. But hopefully I've given you a nice sort of foundational overview of B2B marketing from a 101. If you've been thrust into one of these roles, this will essentially give you a checklist to go down through and to start to build that strategy. So if this has been helpful, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. We're sending out videos like this every single week, and we want to give you a solid foundation in your B2B marketing strategy. So, and hit that comments if there's anything that I didn't cover or you're interested in. I'd love to interact with you in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.